I bought plane tickets for the whole family. But at the airport, my daughter-in-law smiled and said, "We gave your ticket to my mom. The grandkids love her more." My son agreed. I stood there for a second, then quietly nodded and walked away. They thought that was the end of it. A minute later, I made one call, and suddenly, they were begging me to cancel the trip. Here's what they forgot. I didn't just buy the tickets, I built the entire life they were living. The car my son drove to the airport, a black Expedition 2 years old detailed every month, was registered in my name. I added him as an authorized driver when he said he needed something professional looking for client meetings. He picked the color, I signed the paperwork, and we never brought it up again. The resort reservation, 5 nights, overwater bungalow, the kind of place that ends up in travel magazines, was booked under my private club membership. The terms were explicit. Primary member must be present at check-in, or the reservation is void. My son knew this. I mentioned it twice during planning. He just assumed I wouldn't enforce it because I never had before. The credit card my daughter-in-law Renata used for her new luggage, her linen travel outfits, everything she bought for a trip she'd stolen. That was a supplemental card on my primary account. I added her 2 years ago when my son asked me to make things easier for the family. No limit, no questions, just trust. I had no business giving that freely. I made it too easy, for too long. So I stood in the pickup lane outside the terminal, Atlanta heat pressing down on my shoulders, and I made 3 calls. First, to resort. I spoke to the reservations manager directly. I'd stayed there 4 times and she knew my voice. I told her I wouldn't be arriving and to apply the non-transfer clause. She said she was sorry to hear it. I told her not to be. Second, the fleet company holding the title on the Expedition. I reported the vehicle taken without authorization. A stretch technically, but technically correct. Third, my bank. I didn't close anything, not yet. I just reduced the supplemental card to 0 and flagged the primary for review. 90 seconds on hold. Less time than it took Renata to hand my seat away. Then I drove my own car home, the one I'd parked separately, the one no one knew about, and I made tea. By 9 that evening, my phone was ringing like something was on fire. Renata first. 40 seconds of escalating panic on voicemail. The reservation was canceled. The hotel wouldn't honor it. Something about a clause. Something about my name not appearing in the system. Her voice cracked on the word children, like she'd been saving it for that exact moment. My son called next. Then again. Then from a number I didn't recognize. The hotel lobby, I assumed. I listened to every voicemail. I didn't call back. Not until the 18th call, when the performance was finally gone. No anger, no borrowed confidence. Just a man in an unfamiliar lobby who had run out of options. "Mama," his voice was hoarse. "The kids are exhausted. They're about to ask us to leave." "I know," I said. "That's what it feels like when someone takes something that isn't theirs." Silence. "I didn't think." "No," I said. "You didn't. That's the problem." I told him I'd authorize 1 standard room at walk-in rate, something they could pay for themselves. I told him the car flag would stay until we had a real conversation, not a negotiation, a conversation. Then I asked him to put Renata on. Long pause, muffled back and forth. Then her voice, careful now, stripped entirely of the airport smile. "Ms. Diane, think about what you said to me this morning," I told her. "Not the words, the decision behind them. Think about what you were willing to let your husband watch you do to his mother, in public, in front of his children, because you decided I was old enough to just accept it." She didn't answer. "You have time," I said. "Think tonight." I hung up, called the resort, authorized the room. Then I ordered dinner, opened a book I hadn't touched in months, and slept 8 hours straight. The first real sleep I'd had in longer than I wanted to admit. They came home 4 days later, 3 days early. My son knocked on my door alone. No Renata, no speech, just him on the porch saying, "I'm sorry, I should have said something at the airport." That was it. I let him in. We sat at the kitchen table for 2 hours. About the money, the patterns, the years of me absorbing things I should have named out loud long before it reached an airport terminal. I don't know what happens with his marriage. Those aren't mine to control anymore. What I know is I spent years making myself smaller so everyone else could feel bigger. I paid for lives I wasn't invited to live in, and it took one smile at a check-in counter to finally show me exactly how invisible I'd let myself become. I'm not invisible anymore. Full story on the channel linked below.